Oh, yeah, my mic's muted. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So I was saying that Blue Spose, like he says, the work ethic was. Why didn't you select me as a client? The work ethic. What email did you use? You send me an email and tell me what email you use. I'll look at the Google form. Yeah, so basically what I was saying before is that if you look at like Snapchat's revenue, in order for this to grow and be profitable, because like revenue is growing 50% year over year, and then costs are growing like basically let's give it like 25% year over year, right? So at some point you need to double this revenue again, and that'll be like $5 billion, and then the cost will be around like 5 billion as well. That's to break even. So in order to break even, you need to basically look at $5 billion of revenue. What does $5 billion in revenue look like? That's what Facebook looks like in 2012. But I guarantee you, Facebook was fucking profitable at that point. So let's like Facebook 2012 profits. So yeah, revenue 86 billion, 2020. Yeah, I'm curious like what the Facebook's revenue was. 2020 revenue gap, net income. Yeah, net income in 2012. Fiscal year 12 was like 53. So it's like, let's say you model it after Facebook, right? Then you might be, but the thing is that they earned $53 billion in, or I say 53 million in net income. So let's suppose that you were generous and you said this is the next Facebook, right? And you said that they would earn $50 million in 2 years, right? Then you would probably give it like what? I think they said $100 million market cap or something like that. Wait, let me look at Facebook stock. Facebook market cap in 2012. 63 billion. Okay, I see. So basically in 2 years you can think of Snapchat being worth this amount if you really want to model it after Facebook. And what's the market cap sitting at right now? 39 billion. So it's getting pretty close. Like with this 50%, with this like what, 50% jump, you're basically at the same market cap that Facebook is at. So I don't know. Like the only thing different is that Facebook is more proven. So I'm not buying this story. I think people are still overpaying by like 50%. I would say this is a pretty fair price if you're following Facebook. So yeah, Eugene, let me answer your question. Are on-sites a hard prerequisite for consideration for a client, or can phone interviews or open OA qualify as well? I just need you to be able to get the interview. That's it. You don't need to be able to pass phone interviews necessarily or do on-sites. You just need to be able to get the interview. Just get a recruiter to say, hey, yeah, we'd like to interview you. You do that. That's basically the minimum. And and like I said before, I'm looking for clients who are very hardworking. And I know I'm getting the sense that a lot of people are really bitter that I'm not reaching out to people. And I'm gonna tell you like where I'm thinking, and I think I've mentioned this before. Basically, I don't need to take on clients. I'm not like one of those businesses like, let's say Interview Kickstart or Calico or whatever. Like these people need clients. I don't need clients. I don't need to constantly find people to work with. I have the luxury of picking people, but the cost of me picking someone is my time. Now, what does that mean? That basically means that if I need is that if I pick the wrong person, I lose 3 months of my life. Because effectively it's like there's a lot of stress that goes into this for pitching on a client, right? Because I'm talking to this client like basically every other day. I'm trying to monitor how they do. I'm spending all this time just trying to keep track of their progress. And if you've seen my past coaching sessions, you'll notice that I take very good detail, very good care to make sure that they are on track every other day. So this is as much as their life as it is my life. And the biggest thing I lose out on is my time, picking the wrong guy. And you've seen before that if I pick the wrong guy who doesn't do what I say or isn't hardworking, I'm just like, fuck this, I'm out. And I don't want to work with someone like that. And I can't guarantee that that client will get results. And so that's the biggest loss. The biggest loss is my time. And that time can be spent doing other things. And at this point, there are a lot of other things I'm doing right now. So it's basically missing out on just doing things and making my life enjoyable. Now, why the fuck would I want to give up my life and give up my enjoyable time for someone who doesn't give a fuck? That doesn't make sense to me. So I'd rather not take a swing or a chance on people who don't care. That's it. I can just say, hey, you sound good, you talk the talk, but I need to make sure that you can walk the walk, And that's kind of like what we're going to do today. One client, like I've done coaching sessions with him before on his own volition, and he's finally reached out to me saying, hey, yeah, I'm able to get like interviews with Microsoft, with Facebook, but he hasn't done the phone screen or on-sites yet. But I've talked to him in the past. I've worked with him in the past for a few sessions. And I can tell, and I've noticed that he does tend to take my advice pretty seriously. So I'm more inclined to, to take him on. So it really helps, not just like to do a blind application, but to also like have worked with me before, like for like a session or two. And once I can see that you are willing to do what I ask, it makes it's more easy to convince me. It's like, would I take a blind application from someone, or would I rather take an application from someone I've worked with? I'd rather take the second because there's more guarantee. I know how the person works. I know how the person thinks. I know what their attitude's like. And even with R, and I'll fully admit this, I was a little bit lighter on how hard I was on him, and because of that, it's like he was still like almost wanted to quit. That's the thing. Like, you saw the sessions, and I would argue that they're a lot lighter. They're a lot nicer than I've been in the past. He wanted to quit. Like, I think by week 7, he almost wanted to quit. That's a conversation that I think we almost had. But he pulled through. But you can see how easily that could have gone sideways for me. There's a huge, like, it's, like, the clients will get a lot of value. Don't get me wrong. Like, even if they don't complete what I ask. But to me, the risk factor is just so high, I'd rather just not take that risk on someone who doesn't care. If the person cares and they're willing to do what I ask, I can go the distance. And at the end, the results show. But some people don't want to put in the fucking like stress to do it. I admit it's like hard work and stress. And not a lot of people can handle that. So I just want to get exceptional people who are willing to get exceptional results and are willing to dedicate a big chunk of their life for it. And it's not even that big if you think about it. It's like only like 2-3 months of their life. Compared to, like, if you take someone like Kobe Bryant, who basically spent every single fucking day of his life doing basketball and shit. 10, 12 hours a day. For every single day for his life. I'm only asking for 2-3 months. That's it. Like, and if you can't give me that, I see no reason to work with you. So Eugene says, I didn't mean to sound bitter, was just curious. I'll shoot you an email, but I think it could be nice to get a response even if no, so I might schedule a one-time session instead. Yeah, if you schedule a one-time session with me, I think it's easier for me to understand what your needs are. And who knows, after that session, you might find out, oh, I just need to fix these 1 or 2 things. And after that, I don't even need Edbert. And I'm actually happy with that. I'd rather a client not need me, actually. And the reason why is because that means that I'm providing a lot more value to you. Because I don't feel good about taking people's money who don't need it, It's like, if I am going to work with you, I want to make sure that you're getting as much out of it as I'm putting in, If I spend, like, it's like capitalism and in general, it's like about finding this, like, essentially free lunches. And it would be a very good business for me to find all the people who are, good clients who, don't need me. That would be the golden business plan. But at that point, like, if they don't need me, why would I work with them, It's not enjoyable at all. It's like using a Game Shark. What's so enjoyable about the game if I can just fucking use a Game Shark? You ever tried playing Pokemon with a Game Shark? At first it's fun, but then you realize, wait a minute, I just have 99 Master Balls, I can one-shot Flannery and all her Pokemon. It's not fun. Why would I do it? It's like I'm trying to enjoy my life a little bit, and I don't need the money. So, that's kind of like my mentality here. That's fine. Don't want to dox yourself just yet. Yeah, just shoot me an email, man. And it's like, if you're not willing to put a little bit of yourself out there, I can't have a conversation, man. So, like, just send me an email, like, and just say, hey, what's up? I think I can do it because I have this. Is it true that you work with more mid-level senior engineers and aren't inclined to work with junior engineers? No, that's not true at all. Again, it's all about, like, hardworking people. Like, the last guy, R, he's a junior engineer, 1 year of experience. What the fuck do you mean I don't work with junior engineers? I would say I'm not inclined to work with interns or new grads. The reason why is because you guys need the money. That's why I'm not willing to take your money. Like, I don't want to just fucking take it. And also that a lot of stuff I'm going to mention goes over your head, and I think a lot of the free content that I provided is, out there. So it's like, I don't know why you would be complaining. It's like I have a lot of free coaching sessions. I've shown you an end-to-end result of someone who's a junior engineer who started from nothing, and he got like a fucking $250,000 offer from Google. I'm giving the stuff out for free. So, at some point you gotta say, hey, like, just do what you can. And then if it's still not good enough, then talk to me directly. Like, don't complain as much as you are. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, you can complain, but like, I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, I'm trying, man. But I don't complain without providing some kind of solution. Anyway, 76. Okay, he'll show up in 4 minutes. So let me set up a call. Okay. I just want you in engineering learners, not for interview, just more streams. Hey man, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'll give a presentation on engineering levels later. Let me give you like a preview of what's gonna come. So, hold up. Yeah, so I basically had to prepare like for this. So this is like kind of a preview of what you guys are gonna like see. I'm basically gonna just talk about like what things are like at like different levels, how to think about these things, common mistakes that you make, that I made at least. I'm basically just gonna go over like some projects that I've done in my career, and just kind of show you like how they play a role in why I present what I'm presenting and what I've seen, what works, what doesn't work. And hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes. And this is as much for me as it is for you guys. The reason why is because I've never really had to codify all these things into an actual presentation. And teaching is as much learning for me as it is for the students as it is for the teachers. So hopefully like maybe I discover something while presenting this information to you as well. So this is basically the direction I'm kind of going in. So I guess we have 3 minutes. So basically, I'm basically going to tell you that bottom line, if you double the revenue, you basically end up at a operating profit the same as like Facebook in 2012. And Facebook at 2012 had a $63 billion market cap. So let's say that in 2 years, I would predict that in 2 years, Snapchat would be at the current valuation, $39 billion. Let's be generous and do some back of the envelope math. Let's double it in 2 years, right? Snapchat could conceivably double at this price in 2 years. So from $24 to let's say $48. Like in 2 years, it could be worth $48. That's basically what I'm gonna say. The problem is that if you look at the share dilution across years, like you basically get from 1.3 million to 1.45 million. That's basically a 10% jump. So let's say you discount that by another 10%, right? So this is quick back of the envelope math. So let's say 48. Let's say that it jumps up to like $50 a share, right? You have to discount 10% of that. To like, let's say, that'd be like $45. Now, and this is also assuming that Snapchat is trading fairly at $24 as well, which I don't know. So basically, in the best case scenario at this point, if you assume all things are going to be equal from this moment on, that you're basically going from $24 to $45. So what's that? 45 minus $25 divided by $25. So that's like an 80% gain over 2 years. That's really good. But that's assuming that that the market sentiment is about as good as it is today. But then now it's like at $38. Let's say like Snapchat's at $45, right? So let's say let's assume $45 minus $38 divided by $38. What's that going to be? That's 18% over 2 years. When that's basically market rate at that point. So you can see like how back in the envelope math, the price that Snapchat is currently trading at, like $38 post market, is not worth your time. If you really believe in Snapchat, you would have picked shares up today. Any updates on talks with Blue Plates? Ping him in chat, annoy the fuck out of him, and then he'll come on. I think, but like him and Breadcat Bounce are pretty private individuals, so I guess whenever they feel like coming on, So I would say like I said, at the end of the day, if you truly believe in Snapchat for the next 2 years, you would have bought shares today. That would have been like, this would have been fucking phenomenal. And then I think, I'm going to say honestly, at this point, whoever bought today is going to sell here. It's going to sell at market open tomorrow. There's no reason, like, Snapchat's really hard to predict, at least in my opinion. So, you can see in the back of the envelope math, you're only going to get like 18% over 2 years at current levels. So, okay. So, let's bring on my client. Let's bring him on. So, we're going to chat with a prospective client and see if he's a good fit. In the meantime, I'm going to put on some Twitch. Put on some Dota. So, you guys have something to watch instead of, like, looking at Snapchat stock.
And so, we were playing...
Naga is the only other illusion here that maybe.
If you game online, your personal.
Hello?
Yo, hello?
Hello? I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, wait, hold up.
What's up? Hello, can you hear me? Yes, okay. I can hear you too.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so you can't hear me. Okay,
Yeah,
there's a little bit of lag.
Yeah. It's a lag.
All right,
Probably.
cool.
Alright.
So, so I guess I think it's been a while since we did our last coaching session. I think like October or something.
October, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So kind of catch me up on everything, like what situation you're in right now, what you're looking for,
Yeah.
and I guess like why you think long-term or short-term coaching would be good.
Okay. Well, my current situation is that I have like basically 2 phone screens lined up, one with Microsoft and the other with Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably like 1 month from now. And yeah, since our last coaching session that was in October last year, I've been practicing like following your guidance,
Mhm.
right? Like habits that you told me to change.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like another thing. I just stopped like 15 days during the holidays, and then I go back like putting 15 hours a week and 10 hours at weekends. I try to do this like since the beginning of January.
Mhm.
But I feel like I am in a plateau
Uh-huh.
where okay, for some questions that I never seen before, I can do like very good, like following your advice of coming up with the naive approach and like optimizing this until the better approach. But I feel like sometimes I messed it up and chop off like optimized solution in a naive approach.
Mhm.
And I feel like I feel like I lost track where I should to get better, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, from my understanding is that for example, if I take 10 questions, probably I'll be in this situation in 3. And one last thing, I think it's good for context. About the interview I did at Facebook, like for the coaching session.
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes I have too much ideas and I get confused to myself. And I've been following your playlist with R, like your client, and you very clear say that okay, write down everything, you know. And I haven't done this in the past. I get confused in all my thoughts, you know. And yeah, I feel like I'm kind of messed up in this sense, but I've done a ton of practice, and I feel I have a good, like, let's say, good roots, you know, since it's just organized and like correct few habits, and I believe it's possible.
Okay.
That's the whole situation, basically.
Okay, so few questions. First, you mentioned that you have your phone screens, but then I don't remember if you actually did a phone screen with Facebook last October or not.
I did.
Okay, so you did, and then you just did you pass that or fail that?
The first question was good, was totally fine, but the second one is the situation I said to you. I didn't pass. Like the outcome was I didn't pass, but mainly because all was going perfect. Until the second question that was like a medium question, and I just get like lost in my thoughts and ended up like not resolving the question like the most optimal way, and probably that's the reason why they reject me. Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
So that was the outcome. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I understand that part. And then one other thing is that you mentioned that you're able to usually do the naive approach, but then you usually mess up or occasionally in practice. Do you understand why? Do you know why, or do you like not know why?
Uh, in practice, do you mean like optimizing this, right?
Yeah. Like, you mentioned that when you did like some practice questions, you would mess like you. It's half like some percent of the time you would do really well because you could get the naive to optimal and just systematically solve it. You also mentioned
Yes.
that sometimes you would just straight up mess up. But do you understand why you would mess up sometimes, or not really?
Yeah. I in my diary I can identify it. Then when I finish a question, I just do like a quick analysis to see where I messed it up based on the API solution. What I figure out is that sometimes I just think about some possibility of answer of or like an optimization that a path I can follow, but I feel like I deorganized myself and my thoughts kind of messed it up while solving this, or I take too much long time. So it's different reasons sometimes when I messed it up on the question, not just like one unique. So I feel like it's like few habits that I need to fix, you know. So that's basically this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Show me. One last thing. Show me your practice diary.
That is a thing. Following your R's playlist, right? First, what I was doing is doing on pen and paper. If you want to, I can send you the photos.
Yeah.
And I was just like doing notes on the side of the pages. I can take a picture for you.
Okay.
But from this last week, I was about like exactly this week. I was about to start like digitally, but that was it. I was doing like on pen and paper. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you have the pictures, just send them to me. And then I'll tell you like what I'm thinking. So I'll wait. And I guess I'll give you a little preview of like what I'm thinking right now. So based on what you just told me, what you basically hit what I call like the contradiction. And it's not your fault. Everyone goes through this, no matter what you are doing, whether it's like interviewing or anything in that you're trying to improve at. You basically end up in a situation where you're doing everything mechanically right, but then the mechanics start to interfere with each other, and that's when you know like I've run into this like so many times where I just basically end up like freaking out and like flipping out and just not doing anything right. Just like end up going crazy. That's basically the best way to describe it, and I just feel like I have to start over. I feel like you're at that point right now. It's like, oh god, am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. Is this even correct? What am I missing? Yeah, you're feeling like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know, sometimes it works, sometimes not, and yeah, I don't know which direction. Okay, I should just only focus on that. And the thing you did with R, I think, is pretty good because okay, let's focus on those 2 points first, then we can work on like optimizations of answers, you know. So yeah, I'm just sometimes it's a little bit messy, but
That's fine. I don't care.
I'm gonna show you 2 examples. Let me just take a picture. Hold up.
Sure. Do you mind if I show it on stream?
No, don't mind.
Cool.
Hold up. I'm just gonna take my phones off. Hold up.
Yeah. Go ahead. Take your time.
Yeah, here I'm back. Just a minute. Yeah, and I did like the diary, the schedule, right? That Google Sheets that you have, like it's been helping me a lot because it's like a time blocking thing, and okay, it's time to put it to work. What up? Yes.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Yeah. No. Don't worry. Yeah. I want to see like what you're doing with it before I make my decision. I'm pretty sure I know what my own answer is, but I just want to take a look at your practice diary to see like before I give you like a full answer.
Okay, so there's like a little square I did on the left hand side that is like kind of notes of what I think I did
Sure.
not good.
Sure.
So this is the first photo I'm sending you,
Okay.
right? And I'm gonna send another one. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Also,
Take one that is marked.
I also wanted to ask you, so you mentioned, like, do you remember what we talked about in our last coaching session? Actually, could you tell me exactly what it was, and so I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have notes here.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, just
I just one of your clients.
Mhm.
I just following. I guess he's Brazilian as well.
Mhm.
He was like he said that doing on pen and paper was helping him a lot to think before code, and like to put in a solution.
Yep.
And yeah, I've been doing this just because of this. I am like a little bit messy.
No, don't worry. I do the exact same thing. I love pen and paper for coding as well. I don't use my computer.
Yeah, I just think taking one that is not so messed up.
Right, but like in our last coaching session in October, do you remember what we mentioned or like what the mistakes were?
I have the notes here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just feel free to read it out.
Yeah. So it was four points. All right. So the first one, try to drive your idea, walk through, blocker, and fix them.
Identify blockers. Yep.
And come up with the naive solution and optimize this, right? And you put like an item for this. Logic, come up with a solution. So you said to me to focus on those two things, to fix those two habits. And the third point was detail-oriented when coming up with your pseudo code, right? Run through the task case, try to make sure that solution works, and keep track of names of the tasks, all right? And the fourth point was inefficiency can be everywhere. How easy is to write the code? Simplicity is your best friend. So you put those 4 points you put.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
And you pretty much, how long did it take for you to implement all that?
Oh, just one last thing. You said also to like I had to build, able to derive from naive to optimal logically, not like putting magic bullets.
Yeah, no magic bullets.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and how long did it take?
This is one thing I carry into today. Huh?
How long did it take for you to like actually implement it and see like, oh yeah, I'm doing everything, all these things?
I would say that it took me like 2 weeks. All right.
Oh.
But since today when I'm doing the question, I think to myself, okay, this is the naive approach. For example, if there's a solution that okay, let's throw a DFS and we can solve this. I try to. Okay, we need to do a search. Like I try to take the necessity and try to put a solution to this, like optimizing this, you know. So not trying to come up with this bullet bullet. This magic bullet. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was basically this. But my one review of mine, I think for example. The problem few problems I did the past days, I was able few of them like to draw all my idea right as you're like telling to R, and I coded up on the first try. It runs on late code, and I get very happy because it was like I derived all the idea first without any line of code, and when I coded up was like just to pass the idea.
Yep.
And that really works, but I need to get better in those points that I told you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess like I understand now your situation. Yeah, I think that I'm really happy that you like did everything you could. And that's like really what I look for in clients. Like, did you do everything you could? Did you do like all the resources out there? You've given it a shot, and it sounds like you have. It sounds like and it really did help. And I'm very happy that it did. And now you've definitely hit a point where you definitely do need me, and I think I can provide you that value. So, yeah. So I think like let's make it work. So my question now is like, well, do you have time? Like, the only time I can really start is like 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, like around this time, and we go for like 2 hours each time. Can you make this time, or do we need to schedule it for like another day?
Man, it's totally okay for me.
Okay.
I just would say that our time difference is like 5 hours, but that's not a problem. I can make through.
I want you to be in like good position because like if it's 5 hour difference, then right now it's like 3 a.m. at your time, right?
No, now it's like it's 1:15 now a.m. So, yeah, I can practice before and like do the calls with you. But yeah, I was thinking about a strategy. If you can make this happen, how can I do this? Yeah, like getting to work a little bit more late. And, yeah, it's all okay. I definitely can make this happen.
It's not so much that it needs to make it happen. I want to make sure that if I'm like talking to you, that you absorb all the information, and the best way to do that is really to make sure we're in a good time zone. So if it's 5 hour difference, let me think. Would you be available Saturday mornings or Saturday morning my time, which would be like around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. your time, Saturdays?
Oh, it's totally okay. It's totally okay Saturdays.
Okay.
Totally. No.
So 3 times a week, Saturday we'll do the main coaching. Then all right. And then for the check-in, like we'll do like check-ins and replay analysis. I think the replay analysis you can like watch the replay here, and it's only an hour long. So I think that as we can do it around this time. So like either Tuesday. Tuesday 8 p.m. my time.
So really good for me.
Yep, and because that's only 1 hour, and all you really need to know is like like just watch me talk and then just write notes. That's it. Yeah. It's not like anything that you have to do other than pay attention, and the stream will be there. So you can always like pull up YouTube like, hey, let me press play and rewatch what Edbert said. So I'm okay with that. Okay. So like, and then last thing, like you're going for the L3 position, right?
Yes. The Facebook recruiter, she said if I want to try an internship, but she gave me like 2 options if I want to apply for L3, right? I guess Facebook uses another name. But Junior. She said like, okay, for full time is more interviews, but if you want to try for internship, it's totally okay for you as well.
Yeah, and you're you've already graduated, right?
I'm a senior, but I'm working at full time because of like I have experience before.
Okay, I'm gonna say go for the L3. I think there is a very good chance that we can make it happen. Actually, yeah.
Okay, I was waiting to respond to recruiter. Because I was thinking, let's see what Edbert think, because, yeah.
Okay, sure. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about the contracts offline, but for now, I'm going to say tentatively, yes, I'm willing to work with you, and you've got checked off, like, a lot of the marks. Truthfully, I already knew within the first 5 minutes. So, the rest of this was just, like, making sure, doing my due diligence, making sure that, hey, you're not just, like, saying the right things, you're actually doing, like, you've actually done it.
No.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I actually... following your playlist with R, there was another client of yours, right? Like in the past, I think it was Kate, that he was not like putting a lot of work in. I said, man, he's getting the opportunity of a life and he's not even making it happen. So
look, like it's like some people can't do it, but I really hope that he gets the offer and that he realizes that like a lot of stuff that I talked about are right, and if he can do that, even if I don't get paid for it, I'm still happy with that because it means my idea is right. So.
Yeah. Anyways.
Anyway, yeah. So I'll drop the contract for you, and we can negotiate offline. Right. But yeah, just take this as a yes for now.
Okay. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. And I'll just send me the notes just whenever you can. And yeah, we'll talk more later. All right.
I'll send you. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you, man.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye. So, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to like the main attraction now. But as you can see here, the dude just like L3, he put in the hard work. I said yes. Like what? And so we'll have like streams later on, like hopefully starting next week. But I'd like to get that started as soon as possible. So with any luck, we'll start streaming the sessions this Saturday, and then on Tuesday as well. So so for all the people who say, oh, I only take on like junior, like mid-level, senior level clients, here's your example. I don't do that. I like I said, I already knew in the first 5 minutes I was gonna say yes. All I just want to do is like basic due diligence after that. So, all right. If there's any questions in the chat before I begin this, so I kind of want to do a little bit of this. Actually, I'll ask questions now. Because I'm going to grab a Coke. I'll be right back. Okay, so I guess there's no questions. So I guess like I said before, we're gonna do a discussion about like engineering thinking, how you should be thinking at about these projects at different levels, what approximately your responsibilities are. And like I mentioned before, this is basically as much for me as it is for you guys. We're gonna go over like my my own projects and kind of use it as like a proxy for how I think. Now, just as like a disclaimer, I've been a software engineer since 2011. I've been professional like full time since 2014, and I graduated in 2016. So right now I am a senior engineer at Uber on the infrastructure team for mobile Android, and I've only done Android all my professional experience. That's the only thing I know. You know. Now everything in the slides here is just my opinion. These don't necessarily reflect the views of my employers, past or present. They don't reflect how these companies will level you. This is just my own way of how I think about engineering problems and how that's kind of changed through the years. So I'm going to like show you my projects that I've done and like kind of like the gist of it. And also I'm going to talk to you about like the mistakes I made as well. And so this is kind of like a peek into my own faults as well. So hopefully you guys learn from my mistakes and hopefully some of my successes as well. So what are we going to recover? We're going to cover responsibility and scope at various engineering levels. We're going to show you how that reflects the levels themselves, how you can improve and learn from your mistakes at each of these levels, because I'm going to say that the thinking that you undertake as a junior engineer, senior engineer, is going to be pretty different from point to point, especially when you do these projects. And so each of these will have different ways of which people can fuck up. I'm going to tell you that 90% of the mistakes I'm going to present, I have fucked up on. So like I said, it's going to be looking at my mistakes. And we're going to use the projects that I've done as a proxy for that discussion. So one thing I want you to, there's a few misconceptions that I want to kind of get rid of before I start this, because I think a lot of people really think that engineering, all these brilliant engineers or whoever, like, you know, whoever is brilliant, is, you know, they just come up with this in a empty room or like in a silent room where they can just invent all these crazy new ideas or can think brilliantly about these things. And as I progressed in my career, I kind of found out that this was like less and less the case, much less so than I thought. You know, at the beginning, it's very easy to white knuckle and just kind of like, you know, read books, apply what's in the books, and then just kind of move on with your life and just do a solid memorization for it, right? But it turns out it's a lot more complex than that. It's about learning from the people around you and just kind of like taking their ideas, what's worked and what doesn't. And as you go higher up, it's less and less about engineering and more how you think about problem solving and just life in general. And so I think this quote by Isaac Newton is absolutely brilliant when covering this. If I've seen further, it's been by standing on the shoulders of giants. You know, it just means that you cannot like know more or invent more than all of the brilliant thinkers before you. It's just not possible. Or very unlikely. You'd have to be like a giga genius, like essentially you have to be like the Tony Stark of the universe. In which case, it's like, why are you even here? You can figure all this shit out by yourself. You don't even need to be listening to me. So it's basically being able to take good ideas from people who know what they're doing and have proven results, and then just taking them a little bit further or applying them in your own situation. Some people would rather die than think. I like this quote as well. Is that I think for a lot of people in their careers, like I said before, it's much more than just simply memorizing facts. Much more than simply just, you know, looking at like leak code, looking at clean code, and just kind of like saying, yeah, let me just apply this single responsibility principle here. Let me apply this dependency injection or factory or whatever. It's being able to systematically think about like these topics, these concepts, and then putting together in a cohesive picture and tooling that you can apply to in various situations and pick the right tool that will most likely give you the best shot at solving the problem. Now, most people never even think about that. Most people just kind of like copy paste all the time. And I've seen this a lot in like 80% of engineers that I meet. They only know how to copy paste something because they know, quote unquote, it just works, right? And I find that if you can think about the problems that you're solving, you'll get a lot more long-term benefit out of it, and you will be able to eventually develop these mental models that allow you to operate efficiently, and when it comes to problem solving. And that's the difference between essentially a 8-year career and a 15-year career. Just being able to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
It's extraordinary how resistant some people are to learning anything.
So that's a quote by Charlie Munger. It's essentially the same principle. These things don't change. Bertrand Russell is a philosopher from like what 1800s, 1900s.
It's extraordinary how.
And Charlie Munger is like born 1930s, worth $2 billion, vice president, Berkshire Hathaway. These ideas I'm saying, like, they don't change. They don't fucking change at all.
It's extraordinary.
How the fuck? Okay. So, but it's like, again, the point is that if you can think about, like, the problems that you're doing and why you're doing it and why this approach works, why this approach doesn't, you will be really fucking far ahead of most people in just a few years. So a few tips I want to say. I want to encourage you to think one level up. So if you're thinking about L3, I want you to think about not just like what's at L3 and L4 level. I want you to think about like what's at the L5 level. Not just like where you are, but where you're heading in your career. Some people, it's just like maybe they don't want to think about like things at a senior or staff level. Maybe they're okay being a mid-level engineer, and that's fine. But I find that those people get phased out very quickly. And as you go higher up in your career, you're essentially playing with more leverage. And what this means is that people are trusting you more to impact more code. But that also means that you can blow up as much code as you can affect. So you can do a lot, you can also lose a lot. So your risk factor improves dramatically. When it comes to like solving problems, time is your best friend. And then the smarter Swedes are your second best. Why is this? Because if you have more time, you have more options to do things with. And you have smarter people around you, the less likely you're going to make a mistake that they've encountered. And they'll tell you, if you ask them, hey, I'm thinking about doing things this way. Is this right or wrong? They'll tell you, hey, I've tried something similar to this before, and it didn't end well. Here's why. That guy just saved you 3 months of your life. So smarter, more experienced people are going to be like your best asset. But eventually, let's say you don't have that, then if you spend enough time researching it, then chances are you can come up with a pretty good answer yourself. And software engineering is much more than writing code and shipping it, and this was like one of the first lessons that I learned at Apple. Because if you just write code that works, well, then what happens when it doesn't? And when some new change breaks it, you're going to have to fix it again. And that's a cost that you're going to have to pay over and over and over again. So when you're doing engineering, you actually want to write code that scales, that just doesn't solve the problem that occurs today. You want to solve a problem that occurs tomorrow, day after, and whatever you can reasonably encounter or think about. It's just being able to be prepared for the future. And then the basic mechanics of these don't really change. Your fundamentals don't change. So mechanics really matter. So it's not like don't rely on gimmicks. Rely on things that are proven. So like the books that I've recommended. These are books that have been around for like 10, 15 years. And the reason why I recommend them is precisely because they've been around for 10, 15 years. And they're still relevant. So this is proven shit. And the last thing is to be deliberate in your decision making. I've kind of already talked about that. So let's start like with the L3 level now. So at the L3 level, you're basically just doing what someone told you, and they're telling you why it's wrong, what's wrong. So, for instance, one of the first projects that I worked on at Apple was basically just trying to rewrite our app from the Beats version over to the Apple Music version. And by Apple Music version, I mean make it look like what's on Apple iOS. Now, of course, when you spend that much time doing a rewrite from the ground up, you're basically talking about just trying to fix a whole bunch of bugs that, you kind of kicked down the road. And so at some point, we were like 3 to 6 months behind iOS. And over the course of a year, we turned that deficit into a plus. Into I think a year and a half, we were 3 months ahead of iOS. I think that, and in just like easily a year and a half. And I think a big part of it was really just us being able to understand more and more of the Android SDK. Like we had like a pretty fabulous framework, but we didn't really understand like what was going on underneath all that. And the more we understood, the more we were able to scale up our efforts and move faster. And so my job in all this was like not only to write like the player, but also to understand like how our entire thing worked, how we use data binding, why these bugs were coming up, and why they were like why we were constantly encountering them. So like for instance, like if we had like a crash on scrolling in for you, it's like, okay, well, why is this happening? Are we writing onto UI thread? Are we like, are we doing too much work? Are we lagging? Are we having null pointer exceptions? And if I can identify why we have these bugs, and I can see that we're happening over and over and over again, that just made the process of understanding things so much better, so much easier, so much faster. And I became faster at solving these bugs as well. Sometimes the image downloader would crash, and then we would have to figure out why that was the case. And then, okay, well, if we understand that there's a bunch of problems with the image downloader, then we're going to constantly face bugs. And so what does this mean? This means that the way you should think about these things, at least the way I thought about it, is that you need to understand why this current implementation is right or wrong. It's not enough that just because there's a lot of bugs coming from it doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong, right? It just means that there's something that was overlooked or some change that was not anticipated. I don't think anyone writes code like and submits it expecting it to be only half done. I mean, some people do, and for some time I did myself. But I think for the 99% people, you should assume that people don't fucking like are that careless, that they assumed they thought about this problem, and you should identify why they got there. And so being able to respect that is very important. And so what does this mean? The implication is that you should be able to dive through good documentation, the code history. How did we get to the point? How did we get to where we are today? That we had this current implementation. The other thing you should be thinking about is preventing these bugs from occurring, or instead of fixing it. Because you want to think about the commonalities of why we had these bugs. And this is really powerful because the reason why is because I think a lot of people think about bugs as just something to be fixed. But the reality is that you should treat this as there's going to be an infinite number of bugs. There's always going to be bugs with the code, and so no one cares about how fast you solve them. What really matters is the rate they're coming in and how much you're doing to prevent that. And if you can just look and understand why these bugs occur in certain areas or in certain features, you can eventually say, hey, well, if it happened before in the past, chances are it'll happen again in the future. And so we can write something that will or fix something in the core area that will prevent this from happening in the future. And then by proxy, we can fix these current bugs today. It's one form of leverage, but if you can understand it, it's relatively safe because that area is very well defined. So you're not really going to encounter anything that is necessarily going to break something in the future. That area has been scoped out, understood, has been tried, and so you have a very high level of success just thinking like that. You want to also observe your environment. You want to observe what decisions not only did you make, but other people make that cause certain bugs, certain issues, certain systematic issues especially. You want to understand the cause and effect of decisions. So remember how I said why the ideas are right and wrong? It's just being able to understand those decisions and just saying, hey, we had this wrong understanding, and this framework that we applied. So let me give you a solid example. One of the things I did when writing that player was I assumed that we could just do a finite state machine, and so I thought, okay, well, we want to be able to transform this UI from the full screen view, the collapsed view, and being able to manually scale the and slide it in between. So if I can give you an example here, do I have if my iPhone? Oh, my Android phone doesn't have it. So if I showed you this, so what you would be able to do for this, I don't know if you guys can see this, but for the phone here, you can see this player. You can see the image, this image here, scales as I slide down and up. And that some of the content here also visually changes as well. And so I wrote that, and I kind of modeled it as a finite state machine, because I assumed, okay, we want to transform between collapsed view, expanded view, and all that shit. But the reason why this would cause issues is because I was writing everything all at once. And so when I presented this to the devs, they were like, no, that's not the way you do it. You build it one piece at a time. And I was like, why? It's oh, because this works perfectly, and it doesn't matter what state we end up in. If we need to start, stop, restart the app, we can always restore it, and we are guaranteed that the transition is going to work. But turns out that was wrong because again, we don't even know if it works to begin with. Not to mention you're assuming that it was so rigid that you assume that you can't enter into any other states. So for instance, let's say going back to this app, right? Let's just say that we want to switch not just the image here, we also want to show the lyrics. How would we account for that? Oh, well, I said, I assumed only 3 states. But what if we want to add more states in the future? And so that's one reason or one way you can learn from your mistakes. Why did you think this? Oh, I thought this because this was the only 3 states that we would ever have. But then you learn from that and say, hey, wait a minute. What if that's not the case? You should have more flexibility down the road and learn, okay, well, this is just one of many possible permutations that we can arrive in. And so that was a very valuable lesson for me. And so the question now becomes, okay, how can I develop and think about problems in a way that allow me to, scale and, fix this and just better my understanding. And so, if you understand where these ideas and decisions coming from, you can understand where the faulty premises are. And by understanding that, you learn, okay, well, this idea is right. It's just that he had one wrong premise, and that fucked everything up. But the thinking was correct, It's just being able to look at all these decisions that people make and just kind of just go back and forth over them. And a lot of times you're going to get it wrong. But the best way to do it is just look at someone who is doing very, very well and just copy his thinking. They copy like the way he does things, and you're gonna arrive at pretty similar results. And then over time, you realize, hey, wait a minute, this is not enough. I need to change it. And then you just copy someone else and incorporate that, copy someone else. And that's the model I've used. And I think it's very powerful at the L3 level. And I want you to, and at this level, you should also build up your fundamentals of deep diving. And the reason why is because like when you want to understand why things work, you need to be able to like go through the stack trace. A lot of people, and this is something I did, it just like kind of stop at like 4 or 5 levels deep. It's like, oh well, we're hitting a null point exception here. But then you want to go like one step deeper. How can we protect ourselves from this happening again? If we hit a null here, is this going to affect any other part of the code? And why is this even hitting null to begin with? Was this allowed? Why did the developer allow this? And it just kind of ties everything together. So you really want to be very patient with this. I know that a lot of people like really rush through things, and I did this in the beginning. I'll talk about this later, but the point here is that you want to be able to understand things and be able to get to a point, develop your patience and deep diving, so that way you can understand why things are the way they are. Because again, this will give you a template to clone. And if you understand how and why things work the way they do, you can apply that to future projects. So this includes your tooling, whatever code you're reading, and so on and so forth. So really, like if I'm debugging the Android stack trace, and I want to see why a fragment is crashing, I'm going to deep dive all the way down, not just to like, oh, well, on create is being called at this point, and I understand the Android lifecycle. I'm going to see how the backstack works. Like if we're crashing on backstack and some fragments aren't being rendered, I'm going to see how the backstack is like handling all these different fragments overall. Like why are things being popped? How is Android like conserving memory? How does Android decide which part of the life cycle we're at and why? And all these different levers underneath the hood. Now that's going to go beyond the scope of the bug, but it's a very good exercise. And you're going to do this a lot of times throughout your career. So it's really important that you do this now. So a lot of common mistakes that I see, and again, I've made these myself. One of them is like rushing. Again, no one cares about how many bugs that you can solve or how fast you work. We only care about the correctness of it. I think a lot of people really think about, okay, well, if I fix 10 bugs per hour, then I'm twice as efficient as some guy who fixes only 5 bugs per hour. I must be better. Well, that's not the case. We want to be able to fix bugs and prevent them from happening in the future without incurring a lot of risk. And that risk is going to be a lot of, it's going to be another topic I'll talk about later on. But the point here is that we want to make sure that you understand why things work and understand that, like, what is the worst possible case scenario. Have you really thought this through? And that's where you should spend your time on. You shouldn't be trying to solve bugs. You should be looking to increase your understanding and spend as much time as you can to do that. That way you can have a fully presented argument of why your fix is correct or not. And this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to undo this habit. I think it took me like a good year and a half. And this was me like working at it every single day. Another thing is like not scoping around the bug enough and not understanding why things may or may not be reproducible. I think a lot of people just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, fuck it, I don't know why this is not reproducing. I screenshot it, I try it over and over again. Well, you need to, like I said before, you need to deep dive into all this shit and say, hey, well, this is not reproducing because this is the order of sequences that it occurs in. Now, is there any point in the sequence that might trigger the bug that we're seeing? You know, is there like, is there some like multi-threaded shit that's coming in and injecting like some event? You know, like if you're using event bus and you follow these steps, like is there a possibility that a bad event came in the middle of the sequence? So that's really a part of it as well. So overall, I can describe L3, the way you want to think about this is increase your understanding of code and why things are the way they are. And this is going to be a common theme. So it's very good that you get this habit down like immediately. So books that I think that would really help you here for someone at the L3 level is Clean Code, Relentless, Refactoring, and Pragmatic Programmer. Now I've done a video on this before, and I think that you can go and watch it on my channel. But I think that like these are the 4 books that I would recommend. Every other book that I've read, I've read like at least like 20 or 30 books on engineering, but almost all of them just kind of repeat themselves at some point. But if you can read these 4 books, you've understood like 89% of the knowledge out there on the mechanics of coding. And you know, don't worry, there's gonna be more books later on, but at this level, I think just these 4 books alone will put you miles ahead of a lot of other people. So, let me look at my notes. I think I covered everything. Yeah. So let's talk about like L4. L4 is like a mid-level, right? So you're most likely at this point, you understand bugs, you understand code. Now someone's going to tell you like what the implementation contract is, right? They're going to tell you like, hey, this is the way that things should interact. This is the way things should be like input, outputs, So there's a few variations of this. One of them is like if you're on product and you're on like a more lean team, you might be asked to like upgrade things to support new ecosystems. So for me, that was like trying to support Android tablets. Now, at this point, the core features have been built out, like the music. It worked out great on phone. Now we want to scale this out in order to support landscape mode. We want to be able to make sure that we can also match the new design docs that tablet is going to use, right? Because when you look at Apple Music on tablet, it's going to be oriented a different way. You have more columns, right? You have more space. You don't want a lot of dead space there. The layout for a lot of these screens are going to be completely different. So how can we design this and scale and change these features so that way we can support it? In bigger tech companies like, say, Uber or Facebook, you're going to basically be part of a team where you design one feature and then you're responsible for, like, let's say the backend and how the backend contract is. So what they'll ask you is like, okay, well, this is the backend service that we need to be built, and for this input, we want this output. You know, so for instance, let's say, like if I'm backend, I'm retrieving like rewards for like Amex credit cards, then I'm going to tell you, hey, I need you to, like, if I give you a customer's profile, I want you to return to me all the rewards that they're eligible for. Now, this, like, I'm telling you, like, what the contract should be, but I haven't told you anything about how it's actually, I haven't told you how it's actually done. That's up to you to figure out. And this is where your understanding of why things are the way they are and how things work is going to kick in. So, like, for instance, for, like, returning the rewards, you might need to make a call to another service. You might need to reach out to that team and say, hey, well, we need to hit the Amex API. Is this something that I need to do, or did someone write an API for it? I'm going to go ask that person. I'm going to see how we've done it in the past, and I'm going to set up my metrics. I'm going to set up my monitoring. And I'm going to use the stuff that I learned in L3 level, like why things are the way they are. I'm going to also think about, like, okay, well, if I know why they are the way they are, when will they not be that, and how can I make sure that my implementation is bulletproof? It's just one small segment or corner of the universe. And at least for Apple Music, my point was trying to take the current code and refactor. This is where like refactoring also comes in into a very big role, because you're going to start taking apart code that is previously a monolith, and you're going to try teasing it out and trying to figure out what it reasonably might be used for, what might scale, what will the future look like, and how can I make sure that this thing will not crash if we start introducing new changes. So this is like where your experience from like L3 comes in again. It's like, oh, I've seen this crash happen over and over again, and we fixed it systematically by doing this. So I'm just going to take that idea, clone it, and do it here. You know, so this is how you should start thinking about these things, that the patterns that you encounter should be recognizable. So these are like your command pattern, your strategy patterns, singletons, all that. You've probably seen them in some form when debugging code in the L3 level, and now you're going to start understanding how to use them and why they work. Because it's not enough that you want to fix or create things. It's now that you need to understand how does it interact with the real world that I'm doing. I need to also understand, if I can understand that, then I can understand how it's going to be used, how it's not going to be used. And so there's a lot of heuristics that you can start using. One of my favorite is, how badly can someone fuck this up? And the reason why I love this heuristic is because it basically encapsulates all of clean code. It's like, you know, like all these different principles, like single responsibility principle, law of Demeter. These are all heuristics that are used to make sure that a human being does not blow up your code base. And so single responsibility principle just says, hey, if you're reading this class, just think about this one thing. And a person can usually focus on one thing at once, right? And that's where single responsibility principle comes in. Law of Demeter is just more or less a variation of that. Like, hey, your components should only know about things that are immediately relevant to them. That's just it's like responsibility and isolation. And if you put things into that framework, a lot of clean code just makes a lot of sense. Like, you don't actually need to memorize the 10,000 things that are there, right? You just need to memorize that maybe a few heuristics, and then from there you'll remember, oh yeah, if I think about this heuristic, I remember reading this in clean code and it fits here. And so this is where like your patterns start coming in, and this is where like the heuristics you learn come in, and you're going to start organizing them into a few questions that you can ask yourself in order to try and bulletproof the things that you do. And so this is like where this will help you design proper contracts, and people will start testing you like, hey, wait a minute, why did you design things this way? You know, I told you that this is the way it needs to be done. And then you said, oh, well, I thought about people misusing our API. And let me give another example from my Android thing. So one of the things I thought about was scaling the XMLs because there's a lot of variations on the different ways that XMLs can be done in Android. So like for small, medium, large tablets, there's going to be a different number of screen, there's going to be a different number of columns, and each one of these columns is going to have different items. So I thought, okay, well, just make it modular, right? Because eventually Android's going to make so many variations of screens and densities that we want to be able to piece them together based on different rules that we're going to have. And so by doing this, it makes it relatively safe. And as long as we understand our matrix grid of tablets that we want to support, we can essentially support an infinite number, as long as we can define them into finite buckets. And then we just basically compose the data source on the backside the exact same way. Oh yeah, if it's a tablet, we're going to represent this data model this way with this number of columns, and then just pass it in, and use data binding to our advantage. And so once we think about like the different ways that these things interact and scale, how it works in the real world, you come up with some pretty interesting and some pretty solid implementations. And so in order to do that, you also need to understand how long it would take for you to do these things. So it's one thing to come up with a solution. It's another thing to do it on time, because you might come up with some really fabulous and really, really solid idea. It's just that it might take you a very long time to do, and a lot of these projects are on a quarter basis. Now, this is where like your estimations come in, and this comes with a lot of practice. This is like, if you've seen it once before, you should be able to estimate how long it takes and use that as a benchmark. So if you've done it before, you're going to do it again, and it's probably going to take probably about the same amount of time unless you get better with practice. And so this is where you start doing your estimations, like, oh yeah, it's going to take me 2 weeks to implement this part, and usually the lead will give you discrete steps for it. And all that you need to do is just say, hey, it's going to take 2 weeks, it's going to take like 3 weeks, it's going to take a day. And this is like what you want to think about, like not only how should it work in the ideal situation, but what can you reasonably give up in order to make it happen, and how long will that take as you give it up. It's like, if some things you might want to settle for less than perfect, and in order to save yourself some time. The cost benefit effort might not be worth it. And so this is where like future proofing and context takes place. It's like you want to think about what your code does and why it's being used. So again, like being able to tie it to the real world. So a lot of the common mistakes that I see here is like over engineering. And what I mean by this is that people usually think about like things, oh yeah, I want to handle every single possible future case. Well, the thing is that, 90% of that might not even be reasonable. We might just only, we might not even use the code in a year. We might just say, hey, this is disposable, or, like this is a one-time use. This is a very niche use because XYZ reasons. And so when people start to fail to understand these reasons, or what's reasonable in a code base or use for the code, they get into this over-engineering thing where they try to abstract everything. So, like, I've been pretty guilty of this before, where I tried to make everything enum, but then I talked to, like, one of the senior engineers. He's like, no, why would you make this an enum? Because I want to support any number of variable types or item types that come down the chain. But then he's like, yeah, you know what? But this code is not going to live for another 2 years. Like, we don't need to do this. Like, oh, yeah, well, I don't need it. I'm just going to make it an integer and then assign it on the fly. That's probably one way of thinking about it. Another thing is that, well, what if we want to, song, like on the app, we're going to only support like songs, videos, and that's it, What else can you play in a media player? Podcasts? But that's kind of like, that's a type, and we could do an enum for that, but it's probably not worth like trying to refactor everything into an enum in order to accomplish this. So it's like if I wanted to refactor all the places that we have integers, well, there's a very high chance I blow myself up by incorrectly assigning an enum to a place I don't understand. And that's another example of like technically over engineering, but more so trying to take on more abstraction and more refactoring than is reasonable. Another thing is not planning or testing well enough. And so what ends up happening is that people like think about the product, they think about like the code, but they don't think about like, what is acceptable? What is, it's like you think about like how this works, and you think that it will work, right? But you're only usually able to think about things in the most optimistic scenario. And so what happens when things don't go your way? What happens when you miss a detail that blows up your entire code? It's like, okay, well, that's something you need to start safeguarding against. You need to like start testing all these different scenarios and making sure like, just because you fit the plan is not good enough. It means that, well, you have a plan, and it means it's most likely to work, but, it's we all know, like, expect the unexpected, And so sometimes the plan doesn't work. Sometimes you just end up, like, breaking yourself. So then what ends up happening is that you didn't really think about all the test cases that your code can go into. And so you kind of get stuck in this endless hell of endless bugs. And this is where recognizing certain patterns or certain things to guard against at the L3 level will help you here at the L4 level. Like, hey, I've recognized this bug before, or this situation before, and it caused this number of bugs. I don't want to do that again. Let me not do that in the L4 level. And this, we're done and over collaboration. I think the biggest issue that I've seen is over collaboration. And so I see a lot of people say, oh yeah, I need to ask this person about this thing. I ask this person about this thing. But, you know, like, I think that the biggest one I've seen is like some backend engineer asking me about like how their own stack works. Oh, can you help me figure out how the image uploading and our blob storage works? Like, I'm a mobile engineer. I've only been here for like a few months or like 2 months. Like, how am I supposed to know? Like, okay, but I can figure it out. But that's the thing. Like, the backend engineer should understand that blob network. But he's been there for 2 years. Like, what the fuck, you know? And so this is like where I think over collaboration is like detrimental to your career. It's like, oh, you're relying on people to understand things for you. And you might deliver the product on time, but the thing is that you have no understanding of how to do this or how to troubleshoot or how to look up information or how to engineer things or understand things. And this actually fucks you up in the long run because now it's like, okay, well, what happens if someone needs to make this happen again? Are you going to ask me again? What if I'm not there? What if I'm off doing something else? What if I leave the team or some shit, right? Then how are you going to do it? And so this is where I think people like overemphasize like collaboration and office politics. If you're good enough at this level, you like this level, the thing about the L3, L4 level is that you could be so mechanically good that you don't need people. That's what I think. That you should be at that point where it's like, okay, no one's here to help me on this one. I can do it myself. I can figure it out if I'm given like a week. You know, that's basically it. That's where you should be. And so over relying on people is like one of the biggest mistakes that I see. Books and reading at this level is, I would say, Clean Architecture, Code Complete, Designing Patterns, and DDIA. This is where you start understanding the world that you live in for the coding, for code-wise. You look at Clean Architecture in order to say, okay, well, it's not enough that I know how to write good code. It's also important that I understand how to organize my code into separate modules, separate features, and how these interact. That's where Clean Architecture comes in. Code Complete is also there to help you as like a supplement to that. But the big one is going to be Design Patterns. Let me actually get you my copy. So this is my favorite one. It was written, I think, in 1990, but this is like I think one of the books I would swear by. So you can see this is like where your strategy, observer, flyweight. Oh man, I've kind of forgot some of these. Builder, like I've seen like these patterns in code before, but like I kind of forgot them by name. You know, like if you ask me like what a flyweight is, I couldn't tell you. But like I've seen Builder before, I know what it is. But being introduced to these and identifying what works and what doesn't, this book will really help you. So I personally think that this is one of the best books that you can read at this level. Also, refactoring is also going to be good because, and rereading that from the L3 level that I recommended, because now you're going to start to refactor really old code, and now it's going to start playing much more of a bigger importance in tandem with your design patterns. Like, okay, well, now that I see that, you know, like for instance, if you see some old shitty code that breaks a lot, now you're going to refactor it into something that's more easily changeable, that is flexible and won't break as much using the design patterns and refactoring. It's like it's starting to apply the knowledge that you learn in the context of the projects that you're doing. So, and then the L5 level, this is where like you're self-sufficient, you can lead a small team. Like we can start developing products, right? And then you don't need to be told what to do. You just know, hey, I want to design this feature that looks like this. Go figure out how it's done, you know? And you might start involving like, you know, back-end engineers, front-end engineers, mobile engineers, and just try to get them all on the same page. And so one example I did was this donation campaign where we basically aired this during the Super Bowl. It was actually pretty cool to see the ad for this, where I basically had to lead a team of me, iOS engineer, backend engineer, and I guess a few other backend engineers as well, in order to try and get this working, where people can donate money for rides, to a ride to their vaccination appointment. And so this seems pretty easy, right? It's just a few screens where you tap, and then you initiate payment, and then you go on from there. Where's complexity, right? The complexity is handling the payments. Like, how should it be treated? You know, because these donations have tax implications, right? For Uber. Like, so, well, which payment account do we funnel it into? And does this impact which service do we use? Also, like, we're coming out with a new way of handling checkouts. So we need to also incorporate some experimental features. Now, what's the risk factor that we take on when doing so? How can we incorporate it into our plan? How does this go into step by step? You know, and so the scope of the work that you do actually becomes much, much bigger. And the question that you need to ask becomes very, very complex. So the way you want to think about this, and I kind of went pretty fast about this, is that you want to understand, like, what can be used reasonably, what comes up in future standards, what can change, And you're responsible for the end-to-end implementation. How can the architecture change? It's not too different from the L4 level. It's just that now you assume that you're very, very good at your one role and that you can reasonably predict what will happen on the other roles. You can start having gone through the process yourself. You understand what every single other team needs, or if you don't know, you know that the person there will probably understand as well, and you can incorporate that into the planning. And so this is where you want to develop. You want to be able to develop your plans. And be able to start triaging bugs. You want to be able to start presenting timelines based on these estimations. And you're very familiar with like what can go wrong, and you know how much changes or deviations that you can accept. And you know what principles that you want to apply in order to make this code work. So let's bring everything up from L3, L4 level to present day. So like the design patterns that you want to do. So for instance, let's say that our API endpoint wants to change or is subject to change very frequently. Well, what pattern can we use in order to do this, in order to help figure this out? Well, we can use like a facade pattern for one API client to another API client, and then map it to an interface, and then have our main core code call it. That's one example of it, right? Where now it's like, okay, well, we know the API is going to change, so then now when we want to change it, now we all have to do is just make a flag to switch from one API to another, but the contract is still going to remain the same. This is where like your design, like I said, your design patterns start going to kick in. Builder is also one. It's like, oh, well, we know like in this situation A, we want to use this field from the API. In situation B, we want to use this field from the API. And so being able to make that modular using a builder pattern is going to be effective. And so being able to reasonably anticipate changes and making your code flexible and well structured, that's like one of the hallmarks of a good L5 engineer, is that you can actually, your code doesn't need to be maintained after you've written it. I guess one example of Apple would be like trying to create tests for a small app. And the reason why is because now you need to understand roboelectric. You need to understand what instrumented tests are. You need to understand what unit tests are. How does it interact with what we do? Is it possible to make it work, and what do we need, and what kind of standards exist out today that you can bring into our field, and how does that work with the monolith that we have, and do we need to refactor the architecture in order to make it happen? What does that roadmap look like? And so a lot of the projects that you do are going to basically take 3 to 6 months to do, and that's basically like a few examples of what I'm going to talk about. And as you can see here, things become less and less clear. Like it's even though like you at the L5 level, you can pretty much predict how things are going to work and why things work, and you can pretty much deliver home run after home run after home run because it's the same code base that you've worked with, and that's very easily understood, and it's reasonable, And so once you hit one home run at this level, I think at a company, it's very easy to hit multiple home runs. And if you spent as much time doing the exact same things that I talked about at the L3, L4 level, and you follow those principles of like understanding why things are the way they are, you can actually master your side of the code base in like less than 6 months. I'm not even joking. Like if you know how to think about these things, as a senior level engineer, you can get up to speed in 6 months or less. I that's the way I think about these things. Especially if you're like product. I think that's yeah. I always say like even if you're product, 6 to 9 months. I think 6 to 9 months is a very, very good ramp up time if you're following this. I think most companies will give you a year or 2 years or 2 years to ramp up, but I think if you apply the principles, you can ramp up in like 9 months. So a lot of common mistakes that I see are like over abstractions of features and optimistic projections. I think it's just human nature to really be optimistic about your things, because you could up until this point, most people have just been able to deliver things on time, even if they fuck up, by simply just putting more hours in. But there's diminishing returns to this, and so that's kind of like why I think people like kind of get into trouble, is because they've kind of just white knuckled it, but then they realized at some point you just can't. There's only so many hours in a day and so much time, and now you're starting to deal with other people who you can't control. And so now you need to start being much more conservative with your projections. What can go wrong? What if this guy isn't as good as I think he is? What if he's wrong about his estimations? It's being able to start recognizing the reality for what it is, that you can't just like white knuckle it. Done, what is done? It's like being able to make sure that you properly set the goalposts, because like when you write these features, you're going to be like, oh yeah, it does exactly everything product asks. Let's move on with our lives. But then it's like, well, is it just okay to leave it at that? Is there any other features that you want to implement or scale for? Is like, did you try figuring out like what exactly a step-by-step would look like? Because once you start digging into the details, you start realizing there's a lot of details you missed that will fuck you up. And so being able to lay out a solid step-by-step for each one of these things is actually going to be your best friend. And so sometimes it's like not your fault that you miss your estimations, because like there's always going to be unknown variables. But the better you plan, the better you're going to be at hitting your marks. And another thing is like kind of not making other people's lives easier, because when you start taking like a technical role, your job is to know. And when you know, your job is to understand the pitfalls of what other people can run into, not just you. Like at this point, you need to start taking responsibility for other people's work. And there's like a good saying, I think that was taught to me by like a pro Dota player. It's like, it's not your fault that things happen, but it's your responsibility to deal with them. And the difference is that, well, it's not your fault means that, hey, well, it happened not because of anything you did. But it's your responsibility means that, hey, well, you need to fix it. Why? Because you promised to deliver some shit, right? And if the guy doesn't deliver, it's up to you because you promised to deliver. That's what being entrusted with this responsibility means. With great power comes great responsibility. So you need to figure out a way to deliver. If the backend engineer can't fucking deliver, you might need to take over his work. Like for instance, maybe he's like, oh fuck, I broke both my hands. Now you need to say, okay, well, I need to find some other backend engineer from another team. Find him, help bring him on. And get him to finish it. Or worst case scenario, I just white knuckle it myself. But that also means that you need to complete your own work on time or even faster in order to have a margin of safety for that. And I think people are too used to calling their side done and then just kind of like saying, okay, well, if this project fails, it's their fault. That doesn't fly at the L5 level. I think it flies at the L4 level because, someone else is taking the responsibility. But the L5 level, you made the promise, you are planning the project, you better fucking deliver. So, put the team on your back if you have to. Get used to that. And the last one I would say is skipping Jira and planning. I think this is like pretty common. People really don't like writing bugs. But I think the more times you fuck on, the more times you get burned, the more you realize Jira is really necessary. But I think too many people, and I'm especially guilty of this, is that when you're dealing with an unknown area, it's too easy to be lulled in by, oh yeah, I understand this. But you don't, as like, I don't need to plan out. But then you don't know what you don't know. And this is where things kind of get pretty hazy, pretty bad. It's like, for instance, if you're dealing with like an area of the code base you don't understand, but you know how to write it end to end, but then, because like you're saying, great, I spent like 40 hours on this fucking research, like I'm good. I think I have a good idea of how to write it. But then you also need to consider the other side of the equation. What happens if it's not as you think it is? And this is much more, again, this kind of falls into optimistic projections. You assume that because you've done the research, that you'd spent the time here, that you know everything. But very rarely is that the case. And being able to recognize your own limitations, I think, is also going to be very, very helpful here. So at this point, the types of reading that you should be doing is less about coding and more about life itself, I think, and copying other people. So this is where your tech talks, like from InfoQ on YouTube, is going to come in. It's like, I would also recommend reading Complex Adaptive Systems as the book. See what other people are doing in the wild and copy them. So this is where reading GitHub code comes in, the tech talks that they give. Jake Ward and Ian Lake are really good people that I personally follow. On GitHub, I read their merge requests, I read their code, I read their history, try to reverse engineer what they think and try to copy it, their motivations, and just like, try to see what works with them. I would also recommend a lot of non-engineering reading as well. Try to get yourself into that mode of not just like mechanically applying things just blindly that you've done in the past and just like, kind of mashing ideas together, but also start assembling them into an actual framework for actually evaluating projects. So for me, this has been like the Berkshire Hathaway newsletters, the Oak Tree Capital memos, and Poor Charlie's Almanac, to name a few. And I draw a lot from investing because essentially what you're doing is investing your time into this in order to get a lot more efficiency out of the code. And to show you, like, I'm pretty serious about this. Like, this is the stack of papers for Howard Marks from like 2006 to 2020. And then here are the stack of papers from 1994 to 2006. And as you can see here, like, I'm not like just reading them. I'm actually taking notes on all this shit, like highlighting. Like, let me actually let me pull one out. So let me say, let me give you a good example here. Oh, without fucking up my pile. Yeah. So you can see here, like, yeah, random one. You can see here I write a lot of notes in the margin. And it's being able to proactively take these ideas that they're talking about and just say, they think about this in this area? Well, I can think about that the same way in coding. And being able to borrow these ideas from like different areas will help you like not just like in engineering projects that are definitive, but engineering projects that are less definitive. And you'll see that a lot at the L6 level. Okay, so I'm a little over time, so I'm gonna cut this presentation in two. I guess I'll stream this another day, but I'm gonna wrap this up really quickly for the L6 plus level. Now, I'm not gonna say that I fully know this because I'm not L6 myself, but I'm gonna say that this is based on the behavior that I've seen, and this is based on like what I've observed at people at this level. The theme of here is that you know what you want, but you don't even know what the right answer is. There's no implication. There's no precedent for this. You got to figure it out. You got to figure out what the right answer is. So one example is like migrating an entire code base from one build system, like say Gradle to Bazel. So what does that look like? Has anyone done this before? Like, you've never done this before, but you need to figure out what the right answer is. We want to do this. What does it look like? What does the implementation look like? How do we even know that Bazel is like the right system to migrate to? So this is like what I'm trying to figure out myself. And I'm not sure like this list is even complete. But I think one of the things that you want to really think about what can go wrong and manage a risk. And I would say that is like trying to stack factors in your favor, because again, like as you notice, like as you progress through your career, like when you're dealing with leverage and a lot less certainty. So at some level, at some point, you actually get to a point where you really cannot guarantee that your plan will work out. Even at the L5 level, there's always some small risk that might throw off your projections and your planning. But if you can figure out things that are very definitive and get in the habit of like trying to say, yes, this is 99% certain that this will only take this amount of time, or this 99% certain that this will work this way, you can protect your downside risk and essentially beat your estimations. It's like the one idea that I would borrow from like Intelligent Investor is don't lose, like, not Intelligent Investor, but Warren Buffett has this rule, like, 1, don't lose money, 2, never forget rule 1, right? So in this case, in engineering, you kind of interpret this to be 1, don't lose time, 2, don't forget rule 1, which means that, hey, prevent as many time sinkholes as you can. If you don't understand it, don't fucking put your stamp on it. Don't accept it. That's the way you want to do it. And you're also going to apply a lot of heuristics from before, like, single responsibility principle. Keep things as simple as possible. Be as non-intrusive as possible. Don't submit a lot of code because code is like essentially a liability. And so on and so forth. You're basically going to start combining a lot of these heuristics that you have been thinking about, a lot of these mechanics that you've been thinking about, and then using them to understand, hey, I've seen this fuck up before. I don't want to fuck up. And so I'm not going to accept this risk. I know that this can happen. And if it can happen, it will happen. So it's like being able to stack those factors in your favor when doing projects like these. And, that can mean like you need to scope out a little bit more. You need to do much more research than you actually think. I think one thing about this project, and this is a real life example, migrating to Bazel, is that the developer, like who's in charge, fascinating, like his name's Olivier, and he's absolutely one of the most brilliant engineers I've had the pleasure to work with. Honestly, that man is like fucking amazing. Like, this is like something I picked up from him. Like, I don't think he's ever told it to me very explicitly, but like, I think he basically stacked these factors in his favor by simply just talking to other people at outside companies and doing all his research and just like playing with it, trying all this shit just to make sure that he protected his downside. And I once I learned that, I'm like, holy shit, that's like one mental shift that happened to me. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more things I'm missing here, just like after like realizing that. But it's like you can't. But another thing that you can accept from that is that you don't know everything, and you really can't. It's like you don't even know the things you don't know until you try it out. And this is where asking people again really helps. This is where like trying a test run. You might have seen like my video on how to submit projects, but doing a test run is a very effective way. And I think one of the things that I really figured out was that you don't really understand something until you've worked with it. Like even companies, I'll do evaluations on companies. But like, I won't understand a company until I've actually invested in it, and I see all the stock price go down, and investors reacting to this. Then I'm forced to double down on the details in my research. Like, oh wait, this happened because this, let's say for instance, I invested in Snapchat, and then I saw the price go down 20%. Why? It's like, oh wait, Snapchat is correlated with Facebook. Why is it correlated with Facebook? Because both of them are ad tech. Not something that I would have expected. Like, I know they're both in ad tech, but I didn't expect correlation. Now you know. And so it's being able to like take this idea of like and accept that you don't know you can't know everything, but as being able to accept that and run with it, I think that's gonna be a mark of like a good staff level engineer. And I'm still trying to work out this list. Everything in here is like not complete on the slide. This is like just me trying to figure out like what is the difference between me and all the other brilliant engineers I've had the fortune of working with at this level. So, and this list is gonna grow over time. Don't get me wrong, but this is like just a small taste of what I've learned. So I've spent like 40 minutes talking. This kind of went on longer than I thought. So I'll divide this talk into like 2 parts, but I think that this is a good stopping point. So with that, I guess I'll take questions from the crowd. Anything from the slides that you guys mentioned or that I might have mentioned that doesn't make sense? Anything that you want clarification on? And go ahead, ask away. So I'll read some of the questions that you guys have asked so far. Do I do resume reviews? Yes. For Android developers, go to my website, echamptech.com, and then look for the resume review section. I'll type it in. Pairwatch says, doing a rewrite should be done as a last resort. Absolutely. Basically, a rewrite basically acknowledges all the effort that we put in is shit. And it means nothing. Basically, think of it as like your investment going to zero. Now, under what conditions would you want to make your investment zero? Let's say I invest in Facebook stock. Under what condition would I be willing to sell Facebook stock? Well, if I don't think I'm going to get any more value out of it, or if I think it's going to get negative value, right? What if Facebook says, okay, we're not going to make any more revenue. Our revenue in the future will be zero. Stock price is going to be zero. How can I prevent that shit from happening? That's the rewrite, and we want to avoid that situation. We want to try adapting the business or code in order to milk a little bit more revenue out for the long run. Can we just make a small change in order to make a lot more, save a lot more time in the future? That's basically the way you kind of want to think about these things, or at least the way I do. Add new tooling into a new software engineering environment also helps. Yes and no. The reason why is because when you add new tooling, it's another thing that needs to be maintained. It's a third-party dependency, essentially. So let me give you an example. So let's say that we want to add, let's say we use some Android non-standard tooling, right? Because with Android, you use like Gradle, you use the debugger in Gradle, you use the performance metrics in Gradle. All that is like well documented, well used, and whatever. But now you want to add, like, let's say Flipper or like some non-Android standard shit. Well, that's another thing you need to understand. You need to you also need to maintain, and you also need to make sure you keep up with. Now, it's perfectly fine to use it on a personal basis, but I don't think it's like something that you should introduce on a wide scale because now it becomes a responsibility for someone else. So you shouldn't do that unless you are prepared to accept the load, the burden that comes with it. So check test coverage, add tool for type checking, yeah. So these are like compiler plugins that you can add in. And if you find that the problem is prevalent enough, so like for instance, null point exceptions, if you could add like the nullable checks in the compiler plugin and block people from actually committing code that does the nullable checks, that skip the nullable checks, then that's golden because now you'll prevent bugs in the future. Now, of course, this means that you'll incur some burden in maintaining that, but the payoff is going to be so much better because now you'll prevent bugs. So yes, that is another example of that. Bugs are a good example to be proactive. Yeah, you get so many of them, just look for patterns. Look for common ways the bugs occur. How do you schedule your week to fit so much time to read that much? Basically, I dedicate like 3 hours a day minimum to reading. So like, let's say my daily schedule. I wake up at like, 9 a.m., work till 5, 5:30, go to the gym, come back 8 p.m., eat 9 p.m., 9 p.m. to midnight. I have free time. I just go ahead and read it. And I personally enjoy it. I think that what people really get wrong is that they feel like they need to force themselves and hustle, like, oh my god, someone else is like reading 3 hours a night. For me, I need to read 4 hours. I need to do work. The thing is that it should be enjoyable and the decision should be natural to you. And to me, like, reading up on this is like very natural because I see the connection between investing and the work that I'm doing. Everything just kind of synergizes together. And so I understand that by reading these investment notes, I become a better investor. I become a better programmer as well. And I learn new things and I enjoy learning new things about the world. This compared to like if you asked me to be a DoorDash driver or an Uber driver, I'd be like, okay, sure, I'll do it if I need to. But like, would I spend 4 hours a day doing it, becoming an Uber driver? Probably not at this point in my life. I think that I gain more value trying to like read these things. And so that's kind of like what I think people really misunderstand about hustling or reading. It's just like, it has to be natural to you. Like, for instance, basketball. Take like fucking Michael Jordan. He's working 10 hours a day on it, but his obsession with becoming the best is like, it's second to none, and he wants to do it. So if you have to feel like you have to do it and you hate it, like, and you just feel like forced to it, you're not gonna do it for very long. You're just gonna, at some point, you're just gonna fucking resent yourself. And I think that's like a lesson I learned. Like, I just felt like I had to do things at one point, but then it's like I got a lot of skill at it, but I hated myself doing it. And I got results for it, but it's just like, fuck, you know? I just felt so pissed off and so miserable so much that at some point it just wasn't worth it. Like, especially considering all the times, all the stuff I gave up for it, you know? That's why I'm not willing to take on clients that I don't enjoy working with or I don't think will work. I'm like, fuck this. I want to do other things with my time. You know? And that's kind of like why, like, the whole thing about, like, at the beginning, people were saying, oh, you only accept clients who got on-sites, or, oh, like, you only, like, you know, you only take on XYZ. And I'm just like, no, I'm just trying to enjoy my time, and I enjoy working with people who work hard and listen to me, you know? And as you saw from, like, ours case, I take that shit personally. About sometimes needing to research more. Do you delegate that out? How do you know to trust their findings, or do you end up doing it all yourself? Basically, it's very easy. It's the same methodology I use for, like, coding interviews. Find yourself a good source of knowledge and fucking assume that they're right, you know? So, like, for instance, if I want to learn things about investing, I'm gonna fucking look at Warren Buffett, who's like, what, 20% year over year for 50 fucking years? Like, he has a proven track record. You know, I'm not gonna listen to like some random YouTuber who made like fucking 100% in a single year by leverage to the tits on Tesla. You know, like I was like, that's 1 year. Like maybe 10 years. Like okay, maybe I'll start believing in it. If you can pull 100% year after year, like okay, great. But then there's also like some factors of that is eyebrow raising as well. Like how much leverage did he use in order to get there? Because leverage swings one way or the other. It amplifies gains. It also amplifies losses. But if you can, but if he did it by doing like completely risk-free shit like Li Lu, then I'm gonna trust him. You know, I'm gonna believe it. They're like, yeah, he's done it over and over and over again. And so that's basically what it means. Like, just basically means like reading and learning from people who have proven themselves. You want proven shit. Like, I know people who spend a lot of time reading, but they read fucking garbage. Like, they read like all these like the entrepreneur shit. Like, oh yeah, you need to manifest your fucking life or whatever fuck. I don't know what the fuck it is. I can't even do it. But, like, I don't understand that, because it's, like, so unactionable. Like, I can't do anything with it. Like, manifest my life. If I wish for, like, $2 billion, is it gonna come from the sky? Is it gonna show up here? No, I can't do anything about that. You know? But it's like, if you talk about, like, something like managing your risk and understanding the difference between leverage and alpha, which is, like, risk-free money, that's like, oh, that's a very easy concept for me to apply elsewhere. Like, okay, well, for investments, I'm going to look for opportunities that are asymmetric. I'm going to look for opportunities where I think it's not correlated with the stock market, but I'm going to look for opportunities that are going to be giving me positive returns independent of the stock market. And you know, that works out very well for me, I would say. Yeah. And so these ideas are very actionable, very easy to implement. And not only are they easy to implement in the specific area, they're also easy to implement in every other part of my life, like including coding. That's why I find great pleasure in reading these papers. It's just like, it's natural for me to, because I like applying good ideas, and I like learning from people who are fucking smart. You know, and I think the greatest gift anyone could give someone is like correcting an incorrect idea. It's like God's gift. But again, like in the quotes that I was showing you, people would rather die than be smart or learn. And Charlie Munger says, it's amazing how resistant people are to learning. And I would love to be proven wrong by someone. But the thing is that the difference is like, am I being proven wrong by someone who is lucky, or am I being proven wrong by someone who is skilled? And I'd rather choose the second one. So that's why I only trust and listen to people who have proven themselves over and over and over again. I'm not gonna listen to someone who just like managed to make something successful one time, unless that success is replicatable over a long period of time. I'm not gonna care. So that's why I listen. That's why I like read these sorts of information. It's like, it's useful to me in the long run, and so it's worth my time. It's worth investing in, because I will reap dividends over the long haul. That's the way I think about these things. It's inherently valuable to me, and I feel like it's an investment in myself. You know, I better get good at life, because it's gonna be the longest thing I'm gonna do. And I don't even consider myself that fucking smart either. I'm pretty fucking dumb. I'm not gonna lie. So. 9 to 12 lead code. Yeah, sometimes it's just lead code. But then, like I said, if you're doing it right and you're thinking about it right, you only need like 6 weeks to 2 months to do it. I've proven that many, many times. And I've proven it with clients who have gotten staff level jobs. I'm proven it with people who are junior level engineers who started off not knowing anything. I've proven it. So, you know, I'd like to think I'm one of them. But, you know, we'll see over the long haul. Let's wait until I hit like, you know, like 40 or 50 long-term clients instead of like, what number am I on? Like, I want to say like 60 clients that I've worked with at least 2 times. Yeah. I have like 60 clients that I've worked with at least 2 times, right? And I've tracked their record, and I'm holding like a 7% win rate. And those are clients that just randomly sign up, you know? I like, they're not clients that I fucking pre-select. They're clients that just find my website. Hey, I want to work. I need a coaching session from you. And that's the number I track. You know, I've shown you the record on previous streams before. And so I'd like to think that I can apply the same thing to people who I work with long term. And my hit rate for that, you know, R got 100% on his interviews, you know, like for Uber, Google, Facebook, not Uber, Google, Amazon. And I'm kind of pissed that I didn't get him an L4 offer for 1 year of experience at Uber. You know, like that might be unrealistic, but it's like, that's what we set out to do. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, why the fuck didn't it happen? You know? And I'm gonna be thinking about that for a while, you know, like I'm not happy with myself about that shit. And I hold myself fully responsible for it. Like, anyone else would be very happy. I'm glad he's happy with his results. You know, $250,000 offer from Google. And I'm happy a lot of my clients are really happy with the results. But then it's like, if I miss the mark that I've set for myself, even if it's slightly unrealistic, I'm going to be thinking to myself, why didn't it happen? Is it within my control? Can I do more? Can I be better? If I spent more time with him, would he be more fresh? You know, and actually, I think one of the things was that he did one of the interviews, he did the interview after having COVID the day before. And he still got it. He still passed the interview. So you know what? Like, anyone who says, "Oh well, it's all luck," it's like, the man had fucking COVID, and he passed the interview. I don't know what the fuck kind of handicap. What more handicap you want? You know? Like, I don't know. If a man with COVID and 1 year of experience can pass these interviews at 100% rate, why can't you? That's all I'm gonna say, man. Should I sell or hold my Square stock? I don't know, man. I can't make that recommendation. I think it's up to everyone to do those valuations. If it's like completely undervalued, then you should buy more. If you think it's overvalued and to a significant extent, then sell. So you need to value these companies yourself, man. I think last stream I did a valuation on Snap, and I just said basically I don't trust it. It's like unprofitable as fuck. Was he symptomatic? No, he got sick. He literally got sick. That's how you knew he got COVID. So, I don't know, man. I find that fucking, to me, that's like, okay, well, that's out of my control. The man got COVID. But it's like, well, maybe I could have done something that he could have been doing very well. He could have done despite COVID, you know? Was there something I could have done that would allow him to perform even though he had COVID? You know, I don't know. Maybe. I'm still trying to think of it. So, I guess if there's any other topic people want me to talk about, I'll be happy to chat about, but I think we've streamed for like basically an hour and a half. So, was it before the interview? Yeah, it was like the day before the Uber interview. He's right now in, what's it called? He's taking a vacation in Malaysia, but I think that once he comes back from his vacation, like I think end of February, early March, we'll do a winner's interview stream with him, and then he'll talk more about it, you know? He'll talk about like what went right and wrong during our coaching sessions, and of course you can watch those coaching sessions. I think all the coaching sessions are available free in a playlist. So if you look at my channel, look for coaching sessions with R, you can watch all that. And there's like probably 20, 30 hours of content there. You can put on 2x speed and just kind of see for yourself what the whole process entails. And you can see here, like, basically we went, how to describe it? Like you can see his progression. It's not bullshit, man. Like anyone says like, oh, you need to look into it, like just watch the streams. Look at my results. And if you still doubt it, like, okay, well, as long as you're willing to work hard, make a bet with me. You know, and I'll be happy to take you on as a client. If you work hard, that is. So, 1 for 1 for COVID clients. Yeah, I'll take that. 1 for 1 with COVID. A client with COVID got 100%, 100% interview success rates with me. That's a great way to market it. How to get interviews even though you might be COVID sick. You know, that's not a bad marketing scam. Not scam, but it's not a bad marketing pitch. I fucking suck at fucking marketing, you know? So, all of them? I mean, you can watch all of them. I put it out there, but it's up to you what you want to do with it. It's up to you how you want to fucking use those sessions. But I think watching them might be good. And of course, you can do it based on like your own level of preparedness. The more prepared you are, the more relevant the later sessions become. Like if you're completely fucking unprepared, just start from like session 1. But if you're like somewhat prepared and you feel like you can solve like a medium level, like a moderate round of questions, then just start from the middle. Yeah, all of them are uploaded. Hold up, I'll get you the freaking I'll get you the playlist. Let me link it. Yeah, marketing. I could, but I'm not gonna pitch that. The reason why is because it's dishonest. To me, it's slightly dishonest. How to get how to get 100% success rate even though you got COVID. Well, how many clients did you work with that had COVID? 1. I'm not gonna market that shit. I could, but it's dishonest as fuck, and I don't work that way, man. Now, if I had 30 clients with COVID and they all got 100%, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So, yeah, I try to be as honest as fucking possible. Oh, what's happening here? Oh, that PL is stacked. Yeah, that PL is freaking stacked. Yeah, I think I think Dyer wins this actually. What I don't okay, so Lifestealer only okay, Lifestealer is actually pretty good. I think that he goes AC here, right? Oh no, Mjolnir? I guess he's really trying to deal with the illusions, but I think at some point he needs the AC. I think the Mjolnir is a mistake. I really think he needs AC. Unless the Beastmaster's getting AC. Oh, wait, no, yeah, no, he's the no, yeah. No. If Beastmaster's getting the AC, then it doesn't matter. Okay, TA needs Butterfly. Yeah, TA gets Butterfly. Yeah, that's a really good item, actually. Bloodthorn. I guess he's trying to kill the Wyvern. Oh, I mean, if I'm Radiant, how am I going to play this? This is a position 5 Weaver time-lapse? Yeah. I think it's like if you survive the initial Winter Wyvern counterplay, then you actually win the fight because all you have left is a PL and all you need to do is survive the burst. And I think that's where the Weaver 5 comes in. Does PL really want a Bloodthorn? Really? Not Basher? I mean, I guess they have good enough lockdown. This is a really good game to watch, actually. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask me. Like, I'm honestly just watching Dota. I haven't played Dota in like a few weeks. Holy fuck! I got no wish I did. Well, not a few weeks. Maybe like 2. I would say 2 weeks actually. Yeah, I've mostly just been reading, but yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, I've mostly just been reading most of the time. Oh, the TA is in trouble. She TP's out. BKB TP? Oh, there's SB right. TA's down. She had buyback. She got buyback. Yeah, Lifestealer cannot fight. The Lifestealer cannot fight. TP out too. Yeah, the PL just like walks over them. How often do I leak code? I don't. Like I think I mentioned before that once you know how to do it, once you know how to properly solve these problems, you never have to study again. So for me, like I might be a little bit rusty, but if you give me like maybe I would say like 2-3 days, I'll be fine. So like I don't know, like I think that people who think that, oh yeah, I need to like study leak code for like 6 weeks each, like for like 2 months, 3 months, 10 months, every single time I interview, like people are like, you're probably not a good engineer. E-Blade. I never thought of that. Why E-Blade? Oh, I see. I guess like most of the damage is from the TA. No, the most of the damage is from the Lifestealer. But if you're new to the Lifestealer, then the TA is fucking worthless. Yeah, you're new to the Lifestealer, then PL just goes to town on the TA. TA just like can't defend herself against that. And it gives PL the Agi. I was actually wondering what he gets. I didn't think I know for sure Bloodthorn wasn't the thing, but doubt it. Could solve any leak code hard? I wouldn't say I could solve any leak code hard. I would say probably my own rate would probably like 50% right now. But if you doubt it, like okay, man, that's your opinion. Let me know. Let me know. You know, like, kind of let me know how it goes. But I'm gonna say, like, based on my results, actually, you know what? How about this? I'm gonna take, like, in 2-3 years, I'll take one of my clients. I'll take one of my clients and ask him, hey, let's do a leak code problem. You know? And then let's see how he does, you know? And we'll use that as a metric test. Okay? Because I think it's been a year since Pavel did leak code and got his job. So you know what? Let's wait 1 year for that. And once he actually gets it, once he passes like the 2-3 year mark, I'll bring him on stream, and then I'll have him do a leak code problem, okay? And if he's not able to solve it, then you know what? We should make a bet on this. What do you guys want if I'm wrong? If I'm wrong about my client not being able to solve a leak code problem like 2-3 years after he got the job and like did all this shit, what do you guys want me to do? I'll let chat decide. It has to be reasonable though. Daniel says, not gonna lie, EPI and grokking helped me so much. I'm glad it helped you, man. Thanks. And I was like, I'm glad it really helped you. Like, oh yeah, I see Dyer's just like fucking running over them. The PL, like, they can't touch him. They can't touch him. Do you plan on starting a family soon? Not really. What the fuck? No, you solve a problem. Okay, you want me to do one right now? Aside from my coaching business, do I want to start my own tech company? No, not really. I'm not really, I'll be honest, I'm not really a people's person when it comes to this shit. I honestly would rather be like a value investor, honestly. I kind of like spending a lot of time thinking about these things. I think that, I don't know, I just don't like doing business, like, actively like that. It's just not my thing. I find it incredibly unpleasant just having to, like, constantly marketing, constantly, like, looking to, like, how do I describe it? Like, it's like, it's the problem of, like, working with too many people, I think. It's just, like, not really something I find enjoyable. I would say that I like working with people I really respect, admire, and learn from. But the thing is that if you are constantly doing business, you're constantly, like, out in the wild, trying to get money from people who you may not necessarily respect. You just need their business. And I just find that is a very distasteful way of kind of like, you know, living. It's not really my thing. So what if I solve a problem? Like, okay, you want me to solve a problem or something? I was like, but if I solve a problem, then you're just gonna say, oh well, like you can do it, why can't someone else? I think that's kind of like the I think it's a question. I mean, you've seen me solve problems before, so I'm like. So I plan on generating most of my wealth from software engineering, compensation, and investment. I won't talk about my net worth, but basically at this point, my compensation is like not really that. It's significant, but it's not as significant as people might think. Compared to my net worth, I'm rather not talk about my net worth, but I will say that I'm fortunately in a position where if I lost my job, it would hurt a little bit, but it's not like life changing or like life ruining either. I'll put it that way. GG. Yeah, see, Dyer wins. Like, how close to interviews do you think I should be looking into coaching? I think my master's, so I have a year left before I can actually take a job. Yeah, I would say look into actually trying to do a few interviews yourself. So you have a year before you can actually take a job. If you really think, like, just try doing a few interviews yourself, actually. Like, I kind of want to see people give it a fair shake before they come to me. So I would say, like, if 3 months before you graduate might be a good time if you really want to do it. But, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's not my thing. I you know, like, everyone preaches entrepreneurship and shit. Like, I'm like, nah, it's not me. I don't like it. I don't like having to do that. I've already, like, back in my early career, I did like a bunch of startups, right? And I basically contracted for them, and I know what the wild west of that looks like, and having to deal with people on the business end. It's not pleasant. But sometimes you just say, I need to take the job, I need to take the client, so I can make the money. And I hate that. You know, I don't like doing that. Like, even if you're being your own boss and everyone says like, oh, you're being your own boss, you don't answer anyone. The problem is that you answer to a client or your customer. That's the thing. You're servicing the customer and you're trying to give them value in exchange for their money. So no matter what you're doing, you're always in service to someone. So one of the reasons why I like this business is because it's relatively stress-free, it's fun, and I got to pick my clients. And if I don't find a client or I don't make money that day or month, I don't care. You know? It's like I don't need to take on unnecessary burdens just to make money. I don't need that. And I think entrepreneurship is about solving a problem, but at the same time, you need to solve problems for people you may not necessarily care about or respect. And again, like I said, that's very unpleasant for me, and I'd rather not do that. Different streams of income can I talk about? I feel like if I talk about that, then it's going to reveal like my net worth. But I will say that, I'll say that I have probably about like 5. Yeah, this one is a stream of income. My investments are stream of income. I would say my work is my stream of income. Yeah, and then I have 2 more. I have 2 more that I'm not going to talk about, but I have basically 5. And I would say that it's a very miserable way if you think about like income as a way of like, oh yeah, I need to diversify all my incomes and actively manage each one. I think that's a very poor way of doing it. I feel like 89% of your time should go to the thing that's going to give you the most income, and for me, that's going to be my job, right? And then as a byproduct of me reading these investment papers to improve my job, I can figure out what investments to do. And I think I've posted to my Twitter a few times of like my returns, but like I think across, let me see if I can pull that up. Hold up. I might have a screenshot of it somewhere. Okay, yeah. So like without revealing like how much it's worth, but like this is my port since like for a 6-month average. Like my individual brokerage, like I'm up at like 8%. S&P is like only up 2. So what? I'm tripling the S&P or some shit. So this is like me being a little bit active on my investments. Let me see. Do I have another screenshot? I really don't want to log into my account right now, just in case I fuck up and it's showed on the screen. And then I guess like year to date this year, 2021. Yeah. So I guess here it's like 2022 to this year, like I'm only down 2% on, and what, market's down 9%, S&P is down 6. So not only I'm beating the S&P for the past 6 months, I'm just like I'm also less volatile. I don't think I have a long-term one. Do I have a long-term one? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I have a picture of my I don't have a picture of my long-term on hand, but I can probably get it at some point. But I'd rather not, like, yeah. But the point is that I'm a better the way I describe it is that because I read, I'm a better coder, I'm a better programmer, I'm a better engineer. But honestly, I still feel like I fucking suck. Like, you know, again, like I said, Olivier is one of the people I really fucking respect. Ty is someone I really fucking respect. Like, there's so many great engineers on my team. I just feel like I could stay there for like 3-4 years, even if Uber like fucking loses money hand over fist. Like I said, I don't care. Like, even if it's not like my income is gonna go to 0. My income will be less than what most people make, but honestly, I like learning from them so much that I'd rather take the loss. And I find that just like a much more enjoyable way of life. You know, money and health, happiness. And that's pretty much what people will like. That's why the Ty Lopez ads work. But I think people really get confused. You know, it's like you go play golf with a man, and then he says, "What good is health? I can't buy money with it." Like, they just confuse the fuck out of themselves. Not everything's about money, man. And I've always taken that approach. It's like, what are you gonna do with $1 billion? I don't know, the same thing I'm doing right now. Okay, congrats. Now all you have to do is just like save up your money so that way you can live this way, however, indefinitely. And that number is much smaller than people think, I think. Also, when you have like a year, it's worth spend hours per day doing interview prep. Honestly, just do it at a reasonable pace. I think you have to be serious about it, but then you also need to be reasonable. I would say at least give it a shot for like a month. Like, do hardcore studying, and if you figure it out, then you know, great, I can just do this again when it comes time. You know, like once you figure out the process for it, it's very easy. That's what I mean by like, if you want to study once, you never have to study again. So I would say at least just try it now, and once you understand it, you can just do it again in the future. Like, don't wait until like you need to actually do it. Just at least be prepared. And who knows, you might find something interesting. I find a lot of people put pressure on themselves to start image when lifestyle's not for them. I don't think that. Yeah, it's like a lot of people like really want to project this image of like success. I know what I'm talking about. Listen to me. But then you really start thinking about like where their incentives are. It's like, well, they're on social media. They need to drum up like shit for their business, right? What does their business rely on? Their business relies on customers and getting eyeballs and advertising. And that's just really like one way to advertise, right? And if you really look at their business model, like their business saying, oh yeah, I'm going to charge like $500 per hour for my fees. Look at my master class and shit. Like they're trying to get eyeballs and attention and convert them into fucking purchases. So you understand that's kind of like why they need to do it. That's like part of their image and advertising. And I don't only stream like maybe once a week, and even then I'm not collecting money on this shit. I don't collect money on my YouTube videos either. And if I did, I'd be like, oh, that's 6 sources of income, but I wouldn't give a fuck. I don't upload every day either. I upload when I think something is valuable, and I think it's worth your guys' time to watch, even today, tomorrow, 10 years from now. And so that's kind of like why I do that. It'd be cool to see me in a mock interview as the interviewer. Yeah, I think it would be, but like one day. At the senior level, how do you learn from them? Just by watching them? It doesn't seem like you can consistently ask them questions. Yeah, pretty much. Just look at people better than you. Look for merge requests. Look at the merge requests. Ask them what they did right, what they did wrong. And just kind of like copy them. I would say just really copy people. I think is the biggest thing you can do throughout the junior, mid-level, and senior level, engineer level. That's the biggest thing I think you can take away from the senior level. It's like, if someone is able to deliver products faster, better, and with less bugs than you are, look at the merge request. Look at how they plan. Look at, try to talk to them. Take them out to lunch or something. It's like, hey, how did you think about this project? What did you scope? What questions did you ask? What questions didn't you ask? And 90% of the time I find it just boils down to like mistakes, right? It's usually about like an aspect that you overlooked and you didn't consider. And then usually that one aspect leads to a bunch of mistakes and blows you the fuck up. And that's really the way I've done things. I usually ask people like how they did something and what like steps they took to figure the problem out. I do this all the time. Like if someone knows more than me, great. They're going to have a different way of thinking, and I'm going to try copying that and try to learn from that. And if nothing else, I learn a little bit of how things work. Like Eden is someone who's at my level, but I learn a lot from him. Asking him about Kotlin because he knows more about Kotlin than I do. So, I guess with that, like people are kind of dropping off and leaving. So I guess I'll end the stream here today. I'll let you guys know about like what other streams I'll do. Next week. I'm going to negotiate with that guy about what are the business terms, and hopefully we'll be able to bring him on stream. And once we do, I'll announce the schedule, so keep a lookout on that on my Discord or Twitter. So feel free to follow those, and you'll get notified of when I go live or what my streaming schedule will be like. It's in the description in here. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream and learned a lot. If you guys want me to do the part 2 of this, I'll be happy to. But other than that, let me know. I know what you guys think. I'm open to feedback, and and I'd be happy to hear like what topics you guys want me to cover. So with that, enjoy and have a good night.